Oh, I'm jealous. That's
Ah, and you're
that's
gonna
good.
kill me. I can't say what's in here.
What?
French vanilla,
I miss Canada.
right?
I know. I have every time my mother-in-law comes to visit us, she gets us another kind of Canadian-inspired mug. So we
I
have all
love
these
that.
Canadian mugs at our house.
I guess we should introduce ourselves.
Hey everyone, welcome to Spill the Chai. I'm Aliya Jasmine here in Los Angeles,
And guess where I am? I'm Sangita Patel.
up in Canada.
Oh, Canada. I don't have chai today. I have French vanilla. So it's still a tea. It's just full of sugar.
So
But
jealous.
I
I
know. But I got a
miss Tim
small.
Hortons. I miss Tim Hortons. I miss ketchup chips, and I miss
Oh,
sour keys.
oh my gosh. Yes, ketchup chips. I'm gonna have to go get some ketchup chips now. Hopefully, I
Send
can
me
send
some.
you. This was to say, I have to send you a basket. Like you're getting married maybe soon, so the basket's gonna be full of just Canadian shit that you love to eat. So you send me a
Ketchup
list.
chips and coffee crisp.
And coffee crisp, yes, Nanaimo bars, anything, poutine. I'll
Just
set
bring
you
it
like
with you.
I,
Come visit when you come for the
right,
wedding. Come visit. Bring everything
uh,
with you.
everything. You just went into an Indian accent there. Did you not notice that? I
Coffee crisp. I got so excited.
just send it
Okay,
to
everybody.
me. Send it to me.
We actually have a very serious topic that we are talking about and today, and I'm so excited to be spilling the tea on colorism, also known as shadeism, because I feel like when I was younger, this is the exact video I wish I could have watched, and I am so excited to spill the tea and dive into this today.
Yeah, this video of two sisters that are sitting in a car that are Tamil, and the girl's talking to her sister about being dark skin and why she
Mhm.
doesn't feel beautiful. And she's telling her, "You are beautiful. It doesn't matter about your skin tone." And it's something that we've all experienced. I'm not going to talk for you, AJ, but I've experienced that growing up, even when I got married. And I'll tell you a story about that. But this video, Mindy Kaling posted it a few weeks ago or a few days ago, and
Mhm.
it just every time you watch it, you feel it because I feel like we've all been there some way or another.
Yeah.
And it's just a beautiful video, and the messaging is so beautiful. And on top of that, there's been a trend on TikTok recently that has been getting a lot of backlash.
It's
And what the
infuriating. This is the
it's
worst. It's
infuriating.
the worst thing ever. Like how TikTok lets this is not free speech. This is pure racism. And I don't know how TikTok's like regulations allow this video. Okay, I'm sorry. I
Yeah.
didn't mean to cut you
No,
off, but
but
it
you're
makes me
right.
so
But
mad.
a lot of these videos are getting a lot of likes, and again, we know TikTok is really geared towards the younger youth, like
Mhm.
the younger people, younger than us. I don't want to say younger youth, that doesn't make sense. Younger, you know what I mean, right? And so for them to be able to see this, and the numbers of views on these videos are ridiculous. But essentially, what is happening is Asian people or South Asian people, Tamil, Gujarati, whatever, Punjabi, everybody
Mhm.
have been doing brown face and making themselves look ugly and all sad, and then they'll turn around and get all light skin and look perfect and beautiful, and that's what's considered beautiful. So there's been a backlash from people around the world saying this should not be allowed to
No,
be
but
done.
and specifically like with this specific TikTok filter, what it is light-skinned brown girls who are making their skin as dark as their darker skinned brown
Mhm.
girls' sisters. Like we are all sisters, and
Yeah.
the fact that they are making their skin darker brown and then being like all sad that they have like dark skin, and then all of a sudden like their skin turns into their regular color, which is a more fair shade, and then they're happy like just so
I
many
know it's
curse
so
words
fair.
want to come out of my
I
mouth
know,
right now. I'm
and
so
but there's
mad.
a lot of history to this, true, right? Like this whole world where if you're dark
It is.
skinned, you're not beautiful. You come from a family that is not off as well as someone who has light skin because you have to be out in the sun all the time and you're working
Mhm.
outdoors in the field. So there's all these um, reasoning behind it that people feel in the South Asian. Maybe it's different for other countries, but for us, that's what it is that one of the questions you do get too, even to this day, if they're doing arranged marriage, is like, how dark is she? Like, can we see, like that is straight up the way they ask about the beauty of a woman. So it's unfortunate, but I think it goes both ways. I think it goes with men as well. But I think it's both ways for men and women. So, when we have this discussion, it's a sensitive subject, and I think a lot of people relate on different levels. Growing up, I got racism comments all the time. There were things that were
Mhm.
said to me because of my dark skin was because I came from trash and like all these weird stuff that were said to me. But the one that really hurt me was I got married. My door's closed. I got married and one of Sam's family members or friends or family members says,
Mhm.
well, actually, it was after I had my first child. And she said, oh, it's so great that she's light like Sam and not dark like Sangita. Right. I'm right there. And I just had a newborn
Wow.
baby. And she said that. And she's not someone who's of an older generation. She's our generation. She's slightly older than me. But for her to say that, and I sat there quietly and took it. And then from that point on, I used to think, oh my gosh, I am darker than Sam. Maybe I'm not beautiful enough to be part of this family. And then you start questioning yourself. But there's blatant racism, and then these moments where people you expect to support you are not there to do that for you and making you feel like
Yeah.
crap. So I held on to that for a very long time.
No, I mean, and so you should. That's heartbreaking, Sangeeta. Like that's
Yeah.
like something you never want to hear. I haven't had kids, but I remember when my sister was born because I was 8 years old when my sister was born, and when family would come visit us, they would look at her and they wouldn't even say she was beautiful. It was implied by the fact they would say she was so fair. Like they would always be like, "Oh, she's so fair. She's so fair. Oh my God, she's so fair." Like, and that what like I just remember that so vividly that was like a
Mm.
thing, And anyways, yeah, so I totally get that.
How did
That's
you feel
definitely
about it?
I mean, I was 8, so I don't think I thought more deeply about it than that it just became common knowledge to me that being fair was a good thing. I think as a child, like that's is the issue is just that, those kind of things just become normalized for us.
Hmm.
And you were
Hmm.
talking about a product earlier that every brown person knows about. What's it called?
It is called Fair and Lovely. It is a
Fair and
brand.
Lovely. Fair and Lovely. Oh my God. Fair
Yeah,
and
if you're
Lovely.
fair and lovely. And we've all seen these products at Indian supermarkets, and it's a huge market in the US, I mean, in India, where they have potentially will raise $720 million by 2023 in terms of products for making your skin lighter. Yeah, so Fair and Lovely is a company that is bombarding the market in terms of using cream for lighting your skin. There's so much products out there in India where it's almost to what was there? It was $720 million by 2023. That's how much they'll
I
be
mean,
making in terms
this
of
is the
lighting
thing.
screen.
It's a $1 billion industry. Like this is like $1 billion a year industry in so many countries around the world that are, countries of with people of color. And I think that there are what for anyone who is a white person watching this, I think they need to be aware that there are kind of two types of colorisms that happen. There's colorism from the outside world where people outside of our race look at us and automatically,
Hmm.
whether it's conscious or subconscious, attribute different things to different shades. Like people who are
Yeah.
more fair are more beautiful and than people who are dark. But then within our own race, there is so much shadeism, and it's such a big burden to bear on top of everything else that we as women of color have to bear. And it makes me so mad that in 2020 we are still having this discussion.
Yeah, and it's sad that it's on TikTok. So we know it's continued into this new generation.
Yeah.
When you watch Bollywood films now too, I've been kind of like just going on Netflix and kind of going through some of the how you could just see the intro of movies now where you can just see if you're interested in it and you click on it. So I just kind of went through a few just to get a taste
Yeah.
of what's happening. Every girl is light skinned. They look like they're from North America. They don't even look Indian in terms of their features anymore, and that's become the norm in the Bollywood
Yeah.
movies. And it's unfortunate. If I threw it out to you, who's the darkest Bollywood star out there? Like it's a hard question to answer. I can't. Like, everyone is so light skinned. I think, yeah, like I can't even answer that question. In terms of men, I would say Shah Rukh Khan is probably the darkest, but he's still light too. So it's
Yeah.
unfortunate. It's continuing. And when I think about it, when I was younger, and you said you went through it with your sister, and I went through it just because of racism and being brought up in Toronto. But I thought the same thing. I thought light skin is more beautiful than dark skin. So
Of
I did
course.
use bleaching cream when I was a kid, when I was younger. I'm like, maybe I should lighten my skin a little bit. And because in my family, my sister was very fair as well. So I felt like, okay, I need to be as light as my sister. So I did go through that period of using products. So right now, I'm happy with the color of my skin. I think it's great. I'm shiny, I'm
Mhm.
glowy. No one is trying to say wrinkle free, but and that's important to my kids that I send that message as well.
So, okay, let's talk about, well, I'll tell you about my experience after, but I'm curious to know. So, you actually use a skin liner. Did you use a skin lightener or a bleaching cream? Do you remember?
Oh, is there a difference? I think mine was a bleaching cream. It was like a product that I bought from an Indian store, and I used it on
Wow.
my skin. Yeah,
And what happened? Did your skin burn? Did it work? Do you remember?
yeah. So that it's interesting because my skin's so sensitive, and at that time, like I can use whatever I want. I can use acne cream, everything on top of it. It went blotchy. I remember I had the white spots in certain places on my face, and it was actually going the opposite effect on me. And I wasn't staying out of the sun, so I didn't really know how to use the product, right? So it didn't help at all. I actually made me look worse in many cases. So I stopped, but I did try for a good month to use this product because I was feeling so low in my life about my
Yeah.
skin tone. I mean, there I had a bully. Like this guy used to pick on me all the time, and I think from that in grade six, this was in grade six. I said, okay, I'm gonna have to try to do something so I could be more prettier.
Yeah.
And at the hindsight, I just think he had a big crush on me, really, to be honest. But you know,
Well,
um,
it's funny because that's like I remember a guy, the same thing. Like I remember there was this group of friends that we had, and there was another brown girl, and she was very fair. She was a mixed girl, and there was a brown boy in our group, and automatically, right, like all the white kids were like, "Oh, you have to choose between like I can't remember what her name was at the time, whatever her
yeah,
name was, and AJ. Like you have to choose because like they're the two brown girls, right? So all the white people were like, obviously the brown people have to date because that made sense. But
ridiculous.
anyways,
Yeah.
and he was like, "Oh, I'm for sure gonna choose her." And I remember like a little girl was sitting next to me, one of my friends stands me, and he's like, "Oh, well, why wouldn't you choose AJ?" And he was like, "Oh, because her skin is whiter." And I just remember that like so
Wow.
vividly. And it
What
was
grade
like,
was this?
um, we were young. Like I wanted, like it was like when boys and girls first started having crushes. So probably grade 4 or 5. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
um, but I just remember that so vividly. And I mean, I really, really, I heard it from my dad too. Like I remember growing up, my dad would be like, don't go play in the sun too much because you'll get too dark. Like he would say stuff like
Mm,
that. And
yes, yeah,
right. And I think
yeah.
like, my parents also growing up in East Africa, there was definitely I didn't have the caste system that I think a lot of Indian families do, but obviously that exists. Like the higher up the caste, the lighter your skin is or whatever. Like
Mhm,
I've
mhm.
read about it. I don't firsthand know about it, but I think something similar exists with East African Indians where there was this caste system where the lighter skin and I'm not going to like weigh this down with like a ton of like academia, but I think it's really important to mention that the root of colorism does go in back to our colonial roots. So when you do have a country that is obsessed with shadism and colorism within its own race, it does go back to the ramifications of colonialism and the idea that like of white supremacy, where the white race was the best race, the European race was the best race, and everybody wants to become more white. And that kind of ideology of like the white is richer, smarter, greater, they do less hands-on work, less trades work, they're outside less, and if you're poorer and all that kind of stuff, then you are darker. I mean, these are the ramifications of colonialism, and it exists in every country that was ever colonized. And that is a really important thing to for us all to acknowledge, because like the ramifications of that go on become systemic racism. And like indeed here in the US you can look at data that shows that girls with dark, so for example, African American girls with darker skin tones are shown to get in trouble more in school. The school to prison link of like who ends up in the prison system, in the criminal justice system, it's completely outweighed by darker skinned people of color. And there's a reason for that. It's not because all darker skinned people of color are worse, it's because the people who are incarcerating them, who are judging them, we are all putting our racist ideologies on them. So the darker you are, the more you're looked at as a criminal, as poor, as evil. The lighter you are, the more you're looked at as beautiful, as smart, as educated. I mean, it's it's unbelievable. And there are so many stats, and I'll stop ranting after this, but there are so many stats that show that if you look at people of color, if you look at South Asian people of color, Black people of color, and you look at who has the most master's degrees, who is looked at as the better looking, it is unbelievably skewed towards fair skinned brown people. And that is like
Mm,
that kind of racist, deep rooted ideology that lives within all of us that makes us judge people when they walk in the door within the first 5 seconds before we even know
mhm.
them. That goes back to colonial ramifications. And it is such a huge, huge, huge like uh, point of like contention for me because I just feel like we need to be addressing this in our homes. Brown people need to be addressing these in our homes where when our grandma says, "Oh, my cousin is so cute," like when she'll say to like about my cousin, like, "Oh, she's so cute, she's so fair." Like none of us want to tell our grandma that she's racist, but we need to.
Yeah, I
Like
know, I
really
know.
call out people in our own
Yeah,
homes because it's not
I know.
okay that we go out with this. Okay, I'm done. Sorry, that was me on my
No,
soapbox.
that's good, and I'm glad you bring so much passion to this because there's a lot of truth to that, and that continues even to this day in 2020. Uh, and so I'm going to ask you a question. Do you think you're dark?
So I love my natural skin color. I do think I'm darker. I think I'm on the darker side of brown people for sure. But I will say this, like my grandmother is had a black skin tone. And so I when I get tanned, even if I'm out for like 10 minutes in the sun, I change like I look like I change ethnicities. Like I get so much darker. So I'm
Yeah.
never I'm never like it's just I went through my childhood not going in the sun. Like I wore SPF 50. I didn't play outside like a normal kid. I wore like full like I just didn't want to be in the sun because I didn't want to get darker. And that kind of like self-esteem issue with me getting darker has literally stayed with me into my adulthood where like even as an adult I didn't want to get darker.
Do you do you feel that it held you back in any ways? You're saying you wouldn't go in the sun, and that's almost a reflection of you trying to keep yourself away from what you want to do. Has it ever held you back?
Oh yeah, I feel like it's completely held me back. Like I don't feel like I realized what how this affected me and took control over it until about 10 years ago, like in my 20s.
Mm.
And so I think through my childhood, through my teens and even through my early 20s, I would say that this totally held me back. I could have been having fun in like Vegas parties out in the sun in my bikini and having like the time of my life and I was like inside in the shade, like I didn't want to join the soccer team. I didn't want to like all these stupid things.
Yeah.
I totally think it held me back. What about you?
Yeah, same here. I don't know if it held me back as much as because I went out in the sun all the time. I love the sun. I used to really enjoy it, but then I would regret it afterwards because
Hmm.
I would be full on
Yeah,
sun. You're
same,
right, a different
same.
ethnicity. Like
Yeah.
it was, I played sports all the time, all of that. But yeah, like I never really, I almost hid from it. So when I started in television, I said either I go out there as myself and just
Hmm.
this is me, or and get judged for it, which is going to happen, and it did,
Hmm.
and just let it be and not acknowledge it. So that's how I went with it. Like in the before that, I was like, okay, I'm people think I'm dark. I need to get some cream. I need to change the way I look. I need to
Hmm.
do lighten my hair. I need to do this, and then but when I went into television, I'm like,
You just
deal with the
have to be who
racism.
you are.
This
Yes.
is me. This is who I am, and this is what's going to happen. And so when I got hired at City TV, it was so interesting because it was multiculturalism all around at City TV, and I felt comfortable there, and people weren't judging me, but it was the people who were watching me on television. Those were the comments
Yeah.
were coming in. One of them was, "Oh, she's so your eyes underneath your eyes are so dark." And I'm like, "Ah, I got pretty good," but like it's those are the comments, or maybe you shouldn't be wearing that color dress because your skin is so dark, or you should try wearing, white is too much of a contrast for your skin tone. Maybe you should not be wearing white. So, and I'm like, okay, but I didn't acknowledge as a skin issue. It was more of, right, I just got to fix it to make it work. How's this going to happen? But I think you know what? I think I still struggle with it now.
You know
Thinking
what?
about it and talking to you about it right now, I'm getting a little bit of a,
Emotional. You know what? I think it's that we struggle with it for so much of our lives, Sangeeta, that even if we're over it now and we're comfortable in our skin now, like it's still something super sensitive to us. And I really want to add something to what you said that I think is really important is being on TV in my early 20s, like getting my first on air job is truly what made me just accept my skin color and accept that this is just who I was. Exactly how you did. I think at one point you just end up being on TV and you're like, people are gonna rip me apart no matter what. So like I have to just be me. And once I was on TV, I also realized that so many other girls who were my skin tone or darker than me were happy that I was on TV. But I do think that growing up, I didn't even know that I was good enough to be on TV because I wasn't as fair as the Bollywood girls.
Mhm.
Like this is a whole other issue, and especially in the Black culture. But like, I think also my hair, like my ethnic hair, like I always felt like I need to straighten my hair, make it look more Euro, make it like, and that was until like literally this pandemic. Like I just feel like we still so much of how we're ingrained, what's ingrained in us is to have this very Euro white look. And the more
Yeah.
white, the more Euro you look, the more Euro your features are, the more like then the more beautiful you are. And
Mhm.
we have we are getting attacked by that from the outside. And I believe the only way to make sure our kids don't deal with this is for us to support each other. Like we can't draw our knives at each other within our community. We need to like support our brothers and sisters and like honestly go as far as if you are on a panel or you are in a
Mhm.
class or you are on a in a like office where there's another brown girl and she's very dark skinned, that we are aware that everyone else in the room has this like deep seated ideology and like even subconscious racism towards that person. And as your brown sister, like you need to like give her a voice and help her up. And I think
I
that
love
that's
that.
really really important that we do to each other, because I wish someone had done that for me, and surely there's a
I
lot of
agree. Yeah.
would look at us and say we're light compared to them and that we should be doing that for them. And so I do think that this needs to be like a sisterhood among us.
Mhm.
I want to just mention this, and I don't know if you've heard about it, but I recently read, and I recommend this book to anyone, but I recently read Trevor Noah's autobiography, Born a Crime. Have you read it
Okay.
yet?
I haven't read it. No, no.
So good, so good. So it's all about the fact that he was half black, half white in South Africa, right? And one of the interesting things that he talks about is that there's like the blacks and people are racist towards like black people, and then there's the
Mhm.
whites and everyone loves the whites and they're like the supreme race, and then there's the people who are half like him, and they're called the coloreds. And the interesting thing about the colors is that they're not white enough for the whites, but they're too white for the blacks, but
Relax,
they're
yeah.
not black, above black. So it's like this weird middle ground, and
Yeah.
it touches on so many issues. But one of the things he talks about is the brown paper bag test. Have you ever heard
Okay.
of the paper bag test?
No.
So I heard about it in this book, and I was so intrigued by it that I googled it, and it is something that was being done in North America in schools until the 60s.
So
So
what is it exactly?
the it's where you put a paper bag next to you, and if you are lighter than the paper bag, then you would be
Ah,
allowed in a private school where you would be allowed to get a job, where you would like, and if you were darker than that paper bag, then you wouldn't get into that private school. Then you would be considered a black, not a colored. Like it it's called the paper bag test, and I recommend if anybody wants to learn more about this issue that they Google that, because it is so unbelievable how much this it happened in India, it happened all over the world. This brown paper bag test. It's
Yeah.
just so crazy that like we have to deal with all of this like these mental roller coasters that at the end of the day like shouldn't be, I don't feel like should even be upon us. Like it's just it's a lot to bear for us to have all these issues.
Yeah. And I'll be honest, like when my kids were born, I was in a sense of relief knowing that they weren't so dark, right? It's because of what we experienced, but I'm like, they're not gonna have to deal with what I dealt with, right? And the fact is, when you see this on TikTok, when you see these videos that are being created, they're already getting exposed to it. So I wonder how they are going to react to it. Do they
Yeah,
feel they're too dark or do they feel like they're the right tone? I don't know. But it's so sad that it still continues to this day. And I
it's
think
so
you and I are
sad.
still very affected by it.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, I have
even from,
total PTSD about it. Like
yeah.
I was in Greece last summer, and everyone I was in or 2 summers ago, everyone I was in Greece with, we were with Mike and a whole bunch of his friends, and they were all Caucasians, they're all white, like all from different places, from Europe, from some of them were Greek, some of them were
Mhm.
Finnish, some of them were Canadian, like all over the place. They're all white, and I remember like the whole trip was about them tanning, and that's
Mm.
just not how brown people plan their trips.
No.
Like we don't plan our
Where's the
trips around
shade?
planning. Yeah, yeah. It's like we go shopping. We go like, what can we do indoors on this trip? And it was just so interesting. And then I just remember this comment where like they all wanted to get as the Greek sun, right? They all wanted to get as dark as they could under the Greek sun. And some of them would start very white and then end up my color, like like this color,
Yeah.
really, really
More
dark.
of the, yeah.
And
Feel
so,
it.
and they
Yeah.
loved it. Like they wanted to they wanted to get literally as dark as they could. And to them, when they got that dark, it was super beautiful, right?
Yeah.
Yet when I get that much darker, not only is it looked, do I feel like I look ugly, but other people look at me like I'm ugly. And I don't think that's fair. I think that just shows, again, that we're falling into this like
Yeah.
colonialism and the ramifications of colonialism where is this white supremacy, and it's that's not fair. But I remember one of the actually this happened a few times, but one of the older Greek men looked at me when we were all, and everyone was kind of my skin tone at this point because we were all like really tanned and I was much darker by this
Yeah.
point. And I remember this like Greek guy coming up to me being like, "Oh my God, you got so dark. You look really good in the Greek sun." And all the like white people we were with started laughing and making fun of this man because they're like, "Oh, she's dark already. She was already dark. Like,
No.
how dare you not realize that me as a dark person also gets dark? Like, how dare you just look at me and just think like everyone who is brown is one race and like we don't get darker, we don't tan like white people, we don't like, and there's so many layers of my like the complexity of like years of PTSD and years of like self-hatred where like I didn't know if I wanted to be darker. I love that I got dark. I love that my stretch marks didn't show because I was darker. I felt beautiful because I was tanning, but then at the same time like I was mad at the racism, I was mad at people laughing, I was mad that I might not be perceived as beautiful. Like there's so many layers of this that
So many
it's
layers.
yeah. I don't even
Yeah.
know how to unpack it. Like
It's so
it is
hard.
an issue.
And there was one time I went to Helsinki for an engineer conference. So,
One of my best friends lives in Helsinki, Finland.
okay, it is beautiful. Helsinki is beautiful. But when I got there, everyone was blue eyes, blonde
Yeah.
hair, just gorgeous women. But they thought I was exotic. Like men could
Hmm.
not stop staring at me. They were just like, one person called me exotic. And so it was so interesting to see it that way. I'm like, well, I'm going to have to move to Helsinki because I'm
Yeah.
considered exotic. Right? So it is interesting how people look at you in different areas in the world. And it's unfortunate that our people in India look at it in a negative way. So I
Totally.
don't know how I would measure up to Bollywood stars. I don't know how I would measure up to people in India. Would I be considered someone who's too dark? Maybe the paper bag situation. Am I too dark? And be considered an ugly person in India. Like I wonder now, like who would I be in that spectrum in terms of those judgments of skin color?
But I
So
think like I hope things are changing though, Sangita, because I do feel like,
I don't think it
honestly,
is.
you
I don't
look
think
okay,
I
so
think it's probably
look
worse
at
now
like
than it was before.
someone like Lupita Nyong'o. I mean, I
Yeah.
think Lupita is so friggin' gorgeous.
Yeah.
Um, but 10 years ago, every black actress like looked like a white black person. Like I don't mean that like I mean it is what it sounds horrible, but it is horrible. And I do think that like it was like they were black enough for white people to be able to feel connected. And like
But
I will
I
say
almost
I'm
feel like it was a situation of being a token too. Like you think of Iman. Remember Iman, the supermodel? Like,
yes, yes. And I was just gonna say,
I don't
like,
know.
okay,
I don't know.
on a personal note, from inside the industry, I was a producer at. Okay, I'm not gonna say where. I was a producer for a very well known television show, and they were looking for a black host, and there was a few people up in the running, and it was between like three top contenders, and the guy who was the best choice, who was so good, the executive producer didn't think he would do well because he was so dark skinned, and actually at a meeting said, he's great, but we need someone a little more light skinned, and
Yeah.
I just remember my heart falling in my stomach, and I was looking around, and I was one of two colored people in the room, and the other person was black, and he agreed. And I just think that that's such a it just shows how much we hate on ourselves, and we hate ourselves, we
Yeah.
hate our own skin color, and that we are sometimes the harshest critics of ourselves, like it's so
I
so
know.
infuriating. But I do think that like someone like Lupita Nyong'o wouldn't have had a place in Hollywood way back then, and now I mean she's looked at, even like she's so gorgeous, and her features are so gorgeous, and her
Mm.
skin color is so gorgeous, and I think she's showing her playing so many different parts has really opened up.
Mhm.
I think Black Panther itself did that in so many ways. But
Yeah, and I think
yeah,
I think you're hitting a point too, like the fact that we are now reflecting ourselves on screen in different ways that
mhm.
we never saw before. Like we were talking about all these new shows that are focusing on South Asians, and
Yeah.
now we're kind of
But
seeing
I
our
think the Black
own.
community is doing it more than we are.
Fair enough, but we're starting. I think 2018, 2019 is where we're finally like, okay, we're not going to shy away from this. This is okay. We can talk about being brown. It's okay to talk about brown families.
But
And I think there's a
I
shift now.
I don't. You know what though? I think that when it comes to colorism, the Black community is doing a way better job than we are. Like
I
we're
but you're
like
gonna have to give us time. I think
yeah,
the fact that we're seeing this on TikTok is ridiculous,
it's
and even
crazy.
people
It
thinking
makes me
that's the
so mad.
trend. Exactly. So it's crazy that's happening. So we're not even close to
No.
understanding what it means to accept different types of skin color. So I think we have a long ride to go in terms of figuring that out in our own community. So
Well, that's what I
I
was gonna
mean,
say. Don't you think it has to start at like I think it needs to start with us acknowledging that just because your kid
yeah,
looks more white doesn't mean they won the genetic lottery. Like what if our kid is if like we have kids that are born with like light eyes, we literally think they've won the genetic lottery, or fair skin. It's like
yes.
those little comments in our own households of like, oh, she's so fair. Like that's what like we need to
Mhm,
stop doing that in our own households so that when it happens outside of our homes, we're able to
mhm.
call it out and not internalize and not
And s
internalize.
and I think you're right. I think, like, our generation where we're having kids, we don't say that, right? We acknowledge not to say that. I've never said that to my kids. I've never said it to any kids about their skin tone. And even saying beautiful, like, there was this whole movement of you're not supposed to tell a child they're beautiful. I
Mhm.
don't think there's anything wrong with saying you're beautiful. It's okay to say that you're beautiful. It's okay to feel, beautiful. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. It's the way you say it. Like if you use the word fair or you say, the whole skin color and eye color too. You were making a really good point about that too, because people go crazy if you're dark skin with green eyes or blue eyes and
Mhm.
yeah, you're right. It's a very good point. But I think we're slowly moving towards that now. And the video like this that was posted with Mindy Kaling proves that. I mean, that's a video that was made in I think it was I'm not sure if it was in India or not, but the fact that these kids are in those, I don't know, I gotta find out. Maybe it was. In Sri Lanka. I have to check. But either way, it's there. It's not in North America. So I think, I mean, having this conversation is important. And I think this is going to open up conversations for a lot of people who are dealing with it.
Mhm.
I think these are the first steps. I mean, you and I are still feeling it, and we're both kind of like, oh my gosh, all these experiences are coming back. And I think that's going to help a lot of people knowing that everyone's kind of going through it. So I think this video is very important for everyone to watch. We want you to comment as well, share
Yeah.
your experience with us. Uh, Very important that we do share each other's stories because that's how we learn from each
Yeah.
other. So, and I think you giving us the stats as well of what's happening in US, and that helps.
Frozen,
All of that
frozen,
helps. So
frozen, 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 frozen. Okay. And then we're back.
I think we need to make a song called Frozen, Frozen, Frozen.
What's the song from Frozen? Are your girls into the show Frozen?
Let
Into
it
the movie Frozen?
go,
Let it
let it
go.
go. It's my favorite movie.
And like the point of this video, I think it should be said, and I hope you don't mind me saying it, is like we're not trying to come at this as like experts or like historical, luminaries. Like we're having this conversation because we felt like when we were younger, we would have really benefited from seeing other women who had made it, who had become successful, talk about the fact that they felt racism towards them, not only from the outside but from within the community, and and a bit of self hatred too. And that's all we're trying to do is like share our stories, and we really want you to share yours as well. And we encourage you to do that in the comment section. And share this video, share the podcast. We're on Apple Podcasts. Share it with other people, other ones of your your brown friends, your brown cousins, your your white boyfriend if he doesn't understand, and like share this because I think it's important that people start understanding that this conversation needs to happen not in here but like out loud between everybody so we don't feel so alone.
Yeah, we need to stop this industry of lighting cream and make him take that money and put it towards something else that's more positive. But I'm glad we were able to do this, and I think it's important. And I'm so glad that you and I actually shared our stories like live. Like I didn't know about your stories, you didn't know about mine, so it's I feel it.
Hmm.
I really do feel it, and I can really relate to you, which is rare to say. Let me say, like you and I connected 15 years ago when we did this. I think you and I had been more positive with our experience knowing that we had each other, right? So
I
I think that's the
agree.
whole point of Spill the Chai is we're here for you guys to have this conversation. So join us.
And saying, you know what? It's so interesting too, is that like I feel like this is probably the first time I've talked about colorism. It's like probably the first time I've talked about like me experiencing shadism and like my own self hatred for my skin color. Like I literally think if we hadn't been friends and done this, like I wouldn't have ever talked to anybody
Mm,
else about it because my own sister and my own family, like they experience the same kind of like they're some of the proponents, like when we were growing up, I remember my sister being like, oh, and she didn't like, I love my sister. She's very open minded, but we just grew up in the same household. So she would say, like, don't wear that color. It makes you look darker, or like, and she doesn't mean it in a bad way. It's just the way we were both
no.
ingrained. And so
Yeah.
I do love that we were able to have this conversation because I feel less alone in
Hmm.
my experience, even just talking to you right
I love that. Okay, I'm not
now.
gonna cry. I'm gonna drink my Tim Hortons. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Subscribe below and also check out our podcasts on Apple. And let us know what other conversations you want to have. And I'm so excited. So many of you guys are loving Spill the Chai because I'm getting all those comments. And thank you, thank you, thank you. It means the world to us to hear back from you.
So
And
much.
so let's just keep going. Let's just keep building this and let's make this community stronger and better together. So, AJ, I love you.
I love you too. Bye.